Right, this is going to be another episode of Snake and Banter. Now, I know from hard-fought experience that most people in esports can't even handle hot takes on Twitter. I mean, I do low-key sort of get it, because even when you know the person's baiting you with a hot take, like, I will say, normally, most people on Twitter can't get me, but anytime I see Launders tweet, it's like, buckle in, what's this engagement bit? Bloody hell. Well, no, let's just take this totally at face value, like he actually believes what he's saying. Oh, yeah, all right. Yeah, you do think Stewie's the fourth best player? Yeah, I'll just keep feeding that to my brain and then process that like you're another sentient human trying to actually normally communicate with me and not break my brain so Zoomers will upvote your, I don't know, persona on the internet. But anyway, not to call anyone out by name, but basically people usually can't handle hot takes. The joke there, of course, would be if Maui wasn't here. Obviously he's the go-to whipping boy for people not handling hot takes, isn't it? But he's here, so Londres isn't here, so spoiler, he gets it this time. So that's the way it works. Now, if you guys can't handle hot takes on the internet, I know you can't handle hot takes when it comes to smoking weed, because that's the worst part about smoking weed, isn't it? Where you get all that hot irritating smoke in your lungs. You're like, and then there's all friends of yours trying to tell you, no, it's good you're coughing because that makes it like go deeper and work harder or something, like, and you go, yeah, this is good actually. I like getting burned in my throat. No one does. What you wish is you could just have all the enjoyment of the sensation without any of the smoke, don't you? Well, you know what? That's where the Freeze Pipe has got the solution for you, because the freezepipe.com, using the code LFN for 10% off, allows you to use their bong technology, where they have a freezer section that you take out, you put it in your freezer for about 1 hour. After that, it cools the smoke by over 200 degrees. Fahrenheit, Nero. Don't worry, Fahrenheit, mate. You're not like, not afterwards. Like, you have to wear special gloves or anything to take it out. Just Fahrenheit, it's okay. Which none of us know how that conversion works. Don't worry about that. Like, at this point, the joke is, all Oppenheimer should have done is just have all the bomb stuff in Fahrenheit. Everyone who's the foreign spy would go, you know what, forget about it. We'll just build it from scratch. It's a joke trying to figure this out. So basically, that's how you can enjoy it. And if you don't want any smoke at all, by the way, you're also in luck, because they have a vape pen now. And of course, if you know anything about vapor, it doesn't involve smoke, does it? It's just heated, whatever, steam, water vapor. There you go. Right, 10% off with the code LFN at thefreezepipe.com. Okay, so our guest for this one is NER0 from HLTV.org, which, I'll just be honest, that isn't enough. I need to explain more, right? He's basically the guy who writes articles where they're based on stats. Whoa, stop. Narrow it down further, Thorin. That's okay. Give me time. I haven't finished the sentence. He's not just the guy who waits 6 months until someone at tier 2 is like putting all the stats over like a 1.2 and then writes an article like, one for the future. That's one now, you daft cunt. That's why you know that he's really good. Do you have eyes? Can you see the number go up? Yeah, so can we. Like, you didn't figure anything out by doing that and by finding out what country he's from and going, and before he did that, he was on these 3 teams. You also don't know anything about that. So he's not those guys. Those are, I'm separating out, the tiers of life form within the HLTV. It's not that one. It's not the one that just pretends to be Richard Lewis but isn't and can't really get involved. I keep that one nice and vague. Who could that be within the stuff? So no, he's actually one of the ones who tries to do some form of analysis with his stats. Although I will say, I have noticed you have been fucked at least twice. We'll start the episode here, NER0. Just by virtue of the fact that people don't read and you're trying to write written articles. So here's 2 areas I already saw you get fucked. One is when you did that piece that everyone enjoyed. You know, that one where you showed who was really good in stage matches. But unlike others, NER0, I read. So I read, and when I read, that's what it said underneath the title. It did say essentially that it was like the delta of how big the drop off or how big the gain was. As I noticed, everyone just took that as a pure thing. And dude, they were actually acting like some of those names on the bottom end who had like the worst were just actually bad players. Like, I don't know if people know this, but I think like Nico was on there like 3rd from the bottom or something. Like, spoiler, he's in no context a bad player in the playoffs. So you already got fucked on that one. And this most recent one, you actually got absolutely fucked on, mate. Because even though it was actually a clever idea, like, who the fuck wants to just see, like, a chart, right? It doesn't really tell you what. So you had the artists make like a map out of this chart, right? Yeah. And then what's so sad is this, right? I don't know if you saw this, Maui. People were then arguing with him, like, why do they get their own island? It's like, The graph's already done. You know it's not an actual map, right? You know it's based on the graph. All he did is take the graph. He even shows you in the article and just drew around it and then made sort of like a clever way of pairing them together. But they actually acted like you just got to choose where they were on that like map, like move people over. So I feel like that's actually where I want to start here. We're obviously going to get into all the points later, but essentially you're already welcome to esports because you've already enjoyed the thankless task, which is the better you do at your job, the less actually people even seem to understand what you're doing. Like, do you find that at all frustrating? Because I feel like a lot of this just goes over people's heads, mate. They just scan it and think they know what they saw.
Yeah, and that's definitely a thing where it's kind of like, I know that most of my articles, it's like the graphics. People look at the graphics and then ignore the bit where I'm like talking about why the graphic doesn't literally mean gospel, but then that's where it is. But to be fair with the map one, like that is like, I did choose to make those islands. Like it's like on the sky graph, I've literally chosen to make Ross and Nico islands.
No, but you know what I mean, as in like if blameF happens to be on that island, there's no way he can just be moved onto a different island over here. Like, logically, he's just on the graph there. Like you are somewhat restricted on that one.
Yeah, I got someone get angry at me for Frozen being on the beta island, and it's like, this guy has exactly the same stats as blameF and Queso, right? Like, he's just a beta. I'm sorry. It's but yeah, that's esports.
I'll tell you what. We'll see how legit you are, because even though normally we just dive into the episode, I've got one question. It's not like it's not a trick. This isn't like going to test if you're a replicant or anything. But I will just ask it just to see how legit you are. Right? I notice all the TOs, mate. I don't know about HLTV at all, but all the TOs love to put these graphics up where what they do is they take that term, which everyone would know is my number one most hated fucking term on HLTV.org, opening kill, because they count CT, of course, for that. So it basically immediately makes the term completely irrelevant because every fan thinks opening kill equals entry kill. But then we have, so anyway, everyone just takes opening kill and they love, mate, to put these graphics out where they keep showing you that like blameF's top 5 in it. Because, you know, they don't ever say it, but we all know what they want you to imply. They want you to imply like it's a total myth. He's actually aggressive. What do you think on that approach, right? What is being missed on that term? Like, doesn't that just, I would assume without looking at it, does he just push early on CT for the first kill or something? What's that coming from? Are we totally off on that one?
I think the blameF one is the one I've kind of looked into that literally on its own just to try and prove it.
Okay.
Because it's the opening kill stats thing is basically you're inflated a lot by it just what positions you play on CT side, right? And on T side as well, like blameF, like it doesn't take a crazy eye test to know that he plays differently, and he's very good at reading the economy, right? Like that's, I think Vu did something on that as well. Like, so blameF in that, but then you can also look deeper into the stats, and it's kind of, and a lot of these aren't publicly available because it just makes no sense for like advanced stats to be publicly available. Like, we're not really there yet, so a lot of them, but he's very high on like trade kill percentage. Like a lot of his kills are trades. He gets a lot of kills while people are damaging his teammates. He does a lot of that, and it's because he's just like he's just like pack rifle baiting. Like he's not like lurk baiting. He's like there's someone in front of him, and that's on CT side too. So you can kind of prove it, and it's similar to those other types of players, right? He's trading and he's never getting traded. Like when he dies, he's not getting traded, and that implies one or two things: either he's on his own or he's at the back of the pack. And I think we all know which one it is. But that doesn't mean he's like a bad player. Like he's just a very like he's an incredible trade fragger, and it's not actually an insult to call him a beta, but like he's just a very good beta. And I think Stown is a very similar role in Heroic. Like he's the only one who trades more than he's traded. But
see, this is, if people don't know,
this
is actually essentially just an illustration of why we wanted to have an episode with NER0, because like I say, I think there's way too many people who are really good at stats, but then they can't connect it to the game. Like they haven't watched the game enough, or they don't have the eye test to go, what does actually this implies this? Shall I look at it? And so it usually just ends there. So we'll see. Actually, some of the ones you've listed here might indeed be points people brought today. So what is your point for the good? What have you brought as our first point, NER0?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit pandery with the Alexa V love, but I kind of wanted to point out the start of NAVI, because I think, like, a lot of people, me included, probably thought they'd start kind of shaky. Like, I thought Bits, English would be an issue. I think Simple learning a new system, Blade and Alexi B is like a little bit clashing and both wanting to be the main guy. Like, I thought they'd start badly, and I think actually results-wise, like maybe not always eye test-wise, and maybe not always like the pieces we thought were firing, but results-wise, they've actually had a very good start. So they've qualified for full finals. I think Pro League, like, as much as it's still Pro League, it's fairly Mickey Mouse. Like, they've still made it out of their group without dropping them out. Like, this is kind of progression that you want to see. And then when a lot of the other teams out of the summer are struggling quite a lot to kind of get a new team working, I think we're seeing an uptrend at NAVI when maybe we didn't expect one. and that's even with EMA being like nowhere near the sorrow filler we sort of wanted him to be, and Alexi B is already adapting to that, and we've seen Bit at Pro League kind of taking a bit more of that mantle, and I think generally that's kind of impressive for Navi, even if like we're not expecting them to be 2021 Navi, but I think they're doing much better than I thought they would be this quickly, basically.
Okay, where are you at on this one, Mo? We actually don't think we talked about Navi for a while.
No, we really haven't. I think we've given this team a bit of the pass, a pass, just because Blade, that is, was saying that he was hoping by ESL Pro League is when they would start figuring things out. And I would say that for me, when I was watching this team throughout their Pro League group stage, I was pretty keyed into how EMA was integrating. So it's cool that you bring up the other facets of their game right now, because really the beginning of them, I was most disappointed by EMA. And so for him to actually do very well against FaZe was, to me, showing that, okay, he's starting to finally find comfort in his roles, because sometimes I would just see EMA create losing conditions for Navi, like dying when he's on alert kind of position, or he's kind of in a pivotal role, and sometimes he would just seemingly play carelessly, and I just feel like he didn't know where he was supposed to slot into the system necessarily. So for him to come up big in this group stage at least speaks that he's starting to figure things out. And I'll say beyond that, the bit of the resurgence from Bit here, where he was kind of having a shaky year, it seemed like, especially when Electronic was calling, and now I actually think that Bit is playing significantly better under Alexi B. That to me is really interesting. I'm not sure. I would love to know more reasons as to why some of these players that are having these light role shifts and really just a different style of calling that they're playing under can now find just varied amounts of success. Because it's usually like when we see one player change on a certain team, you'll see like, okay, maybe a couple people have to change their roles. They might be a little bit worse. Maybe they'll get a little bit better from those positions. But this is such a drastic change for a handful of them, at least under this, in terms of the style for T sides, that I was pretty worried for quite some time. And I'm not gonna go out though and say that this victory over FaZe to secure, what is it, top 8 now in ESL Pro League, or is it top 10 or something, or top 12? I don't know if I'm necessarily gonna say that to me is Navi now becoming a championship contender, because I frankly haven't been super impressed by FaZe. And then their only other real victory to me was over Apex, and I mean that team is okay, but I'm also not super high on them either. And if like say Navi were coming out of Group D, I would say I would have more to believe in.
Okay. Right, first and foremost, I don't know why you're apologising for liking Alexi B. Is there something wrong with being just objectively right? When did that become a problem? I believe in tolerance. It's the same reason why I actually don't think that everyone who likes the Twilight series should be killed. I believe they should be allowed to live among us as if they were sentient beings like us, and we'll just treat them as if they were, worthy of voting rights, air, oxygen, all that sort of good stuff. No, here's my problem with that, because that's one thing, by the way, as an aside on this. Like, I love when all these people are just saying that like MSL was never good. Now it's like, it actually makes you look stupid. Then, guys, like, are you like a fan of the best Astralis team ever? Well, then they're shit, then, aren't they? Because they're gonna be buying twice, mate. He was the fucking opera of that team. How bad must they be? It's garbage. Don't remember Team Liquid ever getting spanked by an author that, so just letting you know. No, but here's the thing. I actually do think that we took the right approach on this one, which is everyone did the usual HLTV thing where they, as in the forums, where they just like overreact to every single result. Like, they win one, like, oh, lol, everyone who said this is wrong, come here. And then it's like, oh, all the believers, you fucking idiots, they've lost the game to Heroic, whoever it was they played in that group. It's like, this was, to me, the team that on paper logically should take the longest of all to get up to speed. Like, it's a completely brand new project. It's not even as simple as like saying like with FaZe, like, oh, it's an international team. Like, bro, they just changed one player on that team. Like, yeah. At least they had the other 4. And essentially on that team, by the way, the reason I used the FaZe example is when they first added Carrigan back, no one even complained. We all just gave them the rest of that year. We were like, right, it's been a while since you've been in the team. It's gone back to LAN. We just gave them the rest of the time. Eventually, maybe they get it together one day. The problem with the NAVI team is like, because it's Navi, you're supposed to believe they're supposed to win immediately, and Simple's supposed to win immediately because everyone still talks about fucking sports like he individually's winning the championship, if he's good or not. So to me, this already was like the most ambitious project probably ever at Tier 1. Like a completely brand new lineup with 5 totally different, 4 nationalities, and then also you're making people do a hard swap to speaking English who don't have to speak English before. So I did give them the biggest possible like sort of like pass initially, but I do think now is when you have to actually pay close attention. So now's actually a pretty good sign that they've sort of had this uptick in Pro League. Obviously, for me, like the next 2 lands will basically seal it. Like, here's the problem. When I say give them a while, you don't really get like 5 lands. Like, you have to eventually like start to like show like the ceiling. Like, that's the real problem I think this squad has at the moment. Is like, I don't think I've ever actually seen a game where it all came together in the same time. Like, they can have a game where simple frags and bit frags and maybe like a one map imma frags or it's never been one game where the whole team just looked really good. So I am still a bit concerned about like that along the trajectory they're getting to wherever they're supposed to be. I will say, by the way, it is low-key actually genius from Blade. I hope every coach is paying attention. Because everyone on Reddit is such a moron, they just repeat what they're told, like some absolute idiot playing like telephone or something. Because Blade just went like, well, I don't think we should really be able to, judge this project until a few months in. People just kept going like, yeah, but the thing is, you can't actually judge them yet because Blade said. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, anyone could just say that. Like, spoiler, every coach out there, just say that when you make a brand new lineup change. Just say some mad shit like that. Like, I don't think we should really be judged until about 9 months in after, the first major or so. It would be really inhumane not to do that. And then all the fans will just go, well, whatever he says, okay, that's the expectations. So here's the problem. I do think like it's fine for where they are at the moment, but you can't wait forever at the same time. If in the next 2 lands there isn't like suddenly a jump up, I will start to get concerned, because the main problem I have with this lineup is like, I actually think if there is almost like some sort of mad curse following Alexi B in his career. Because on the one hand, you can't complain. He did get like the best player ever, still in potentially like good form. It looks like he could get back to being one of the top 5 players again. But at the same time, the reason you've been done dirty is because every fan really thinks that it's like set in stone that like Imma and JL were like monsters because of the major. And it's like, we'll never get to know if they actually were. Like, there's no A-B control test. Like, they didn't go back to their teams and play like 4 lands without Alexi B. So the joke is now, if either of those players fail, Alexi B will get blamed for it. Meanwhile, we don't actually know that they were ever that good. Like the Imma guy, by the way, the least sample size ever. It's 1 major, that's it. Yeah, it looked awesome, but it was 1 major ever. And quite frankly, in that team, he looked like he had like sort of like exactly all the spots he wanted. The JL one, I thought that was crazy that I've even picked him up. Like, I don't even get that one really. Like, just seems like a random pickup. So it was so shocking when you heard there was like spent all that money on it. It's like, the fuck? Like, it's like they were headhunting. Well, the jokes write themselves on that one. In many ways, whenever you go for jail, you're always headhunting in some ways, Maui. I mean, after all, what else is he? Just a head with tiny little body and, little peanut inside, rattling around in there, echoing the sound of almost making the final of a major. The real sad thing, by the way, I'll just throw this in there, is if you ever go back and rewatch that Vitality versus Apex semi-final, not only is it plausible Apex would have won, but what the fuck would anyone have done if it had been Gamer Legion versus Apex in the major final? Like, it would actually low-key have made a mockery of every one of those players, like Guardian, Existence, that never won a major. That actually, for real, it would be like Kicksan against, like, fucking Knock. Like, who wins the major? The last ever, like, that's the world we live in. So anyway, the long story is, I do think that, like, they're probably overhyped and underhyped Navi. Like, I think the potential is there. They haven't hit it at all. Like, I still think that they're far enough off. I'm not, like, super hyped. But I definitely do think, like, people were going way too hard early. Like, there was always some promise in each of the matches they've shown for me. I don't think I've almost ever seen them get completely blown out and look shit. So I think for me, it's just, like I say, it's just a mega ambitious project. It'll either work out. I think there's only 2 ways this goes, by the way. I don't think they will stay like they are now, like the 11th best team or 9th best team. I think there's only 2 ways it goes. You either become legit top 10 or you just become terrible, probably become like 18th in the world or something. So that'll be my prediction. Maui, your good point.
Yeah, mine is on brand, of course. The fact that we're starting to see complexity regain the form that it felt like they dropped off from when they were playing, say, at Katowice earlier this year, where it was like, okay, this team can actually find upsets, can start contesting against European competition, and they were a round away from taking down G2 in a LAN BO3. And so when I watch this complexity team now, versus when they first were integrating Elige, I was kind of like, there was hesitations, there was a lack of connection in terms of the macro. But now I feel like, especially when I watched them versus G2 yesterday, the way that they were able to just use utility to support each other so consistently, it feels like the communication's on point for them now. I feel like the individuals, for some reason, I don't know what it is with complexity, because it seems like some days, some tournaments, I'll get this Halzerk that is one of can show all those signs, those flashes that we saw when he first joined Dignitas, where he was clearly the best player with this retirement home squad, and he was basically hard carrying them into contention to be relevant, even though the rest of his team wasn't really producing on that end. And at this tournament, I'm not going to say like Halzerg was the big reason, but man, Floppy in closing moments was fantastic. He was winning 1v3s. He against G2, by the way. He was frequently just finding multi-frags in any kind of post-plant position on bomb site defenses. He was showing everything that I liked about him when he was first joining that Cloud9 Colossus project. And that, to me, it's just that I don't know if it's a mood thing for them still, though, or if they just sometimes realize, okay, we need to grind a bit harder. But I will say that one thing with this team is that I'm not still sold that they've gotten over the hump in terms of composure, because the way that they did lose that G2 matchup was very disappointing, and it was very reminiscent of the way that they lost so many big matches before. I'm thinking at Katowice versus Virtus.pro, where they lost out on a playoff spot to qualify for Kato playoffs, and then it was like in a pretty choky fashion where they just kind of fall off even despite having a lead. And versus G2, they were up 15-10 on map 2 after winning map 1, and then they still fall off. And it made me really think about like what do veteran players bring if not allowing you to get over those moments? And it still has me, it leaves me scratching my head. Like what is Elige's purpose here? And people talk about even the heroic rumor for bringing Dupree. Like, is he going to help them actually get over the line? Because I don't know when I'm going to ever see that actually transpire, because this was supposed to be a moment where it happens. But to get back to what is really just the good point about all of this, Complexity looked like a competitive team again. They're clearly better than Liquid actually right now, which is hilarious. Even so, it's like Elige actually won the breakup there. And for Complexity as a whole, I'm not sure if they're actually going to do anything in ESL Pro League, but to me, they're a team that could easily hit the top 12 and stay in the top 12 of rankings for the next handful of months.
Thoughts, Nero?
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that's always hard to talk about with Complexity is like, is it sustainable, right? Because I think the Kato one, I think that was Halzerg was winning a clutch, like 2 clutches a map or something. There was something ridiculous, and I think it's kind of similar here with Floppy's performance. Like, I kind of think like the blueprint for Complexity long term is probably a trio of like Grim, Halzerg, and Liege, right? And when Floppy's the main reason you're winning games, it's like this is like he's obviously a very good X Factor, very good in the clutch and everything like that. But like on paper, he should be the 4th player, and it's kind of. That's kind of what elevated them alongside Elige being like in proper star form as well. And I think that's, and yeah, like you said, the composure, that was going to be my main point, is I just think it's happened too many times now with Complexity, with like getting over this hump. And I don't think it's an easy thing to fix at all, but it's just that thing where if you're going to get this close in this many group stages, like you kind of need something a little bit more at the end of the line. And I don't think Elige is really going to be the one to fix that. I don't think he's like quite got that kind of mentality, like communication wise, to be able to keep people going as well as maybe some other figures in the scene can.
Yeah, the weird thing I think about that is it just shows how, unfortunately, it is mainly an American thing. They make all the same narratives exist for every player, and they just slot you in. So, like, how people are doing this angle of like, oh yeah, the reason we got Check's Notes in Liege is we wanted like a really down-to-earth veteran who, like, would understand like how to train young players. Like, you got the wrong person then, didn't you? You got like literally the Ice Princess himself of North America, the fucking Queen Diva with 17 fucking costume changes before each major fight. What are you doing, you daft cunt? Like, the whole point is, the reason they basically had to kick him out of Team Liquid is because he just spent the last fucking 10 years like, I can feel another pee under the bed, I can't go to bed yet, granddad, like, give me a break. Like, essentially in that team, they understood you either give him everything or there's no point, just kick him out of the team. Like, there's no point, this is a waste of everyone's time. So, to me, that's the weirdest angle of all. It's like, to me, you only bring a Legion for one thing, to be a mercenary and have a pretty good rifle, and hopefully, if he gets situated and actually starts to win you over with the mesmerism, eventually he becomes the star of the team and you're back in action. So to me, he's already done that. Like, he actually looks pretty good in this team. He has sort of turned his game around. I imagine playing with less pressure, and the fact that like essentially there's just no scrutiny on you. And when you're in a team like this, it's why I said ages ago, fucking Orsi, it would be good. Like, it'd be bad for his bank account, but it'd be way better for Orsi's career if he was in this team. If he was in this team, mate, he'd be celebrated all day long. He'd be one of the better players. Like, he'd actually be the reason you win most of the games. Instead, on Team Liquid, he's only ever going to be just fucking put in the cons section as people bag on the team. So I actually think in general it was a good move for Liège, and it was a good move for Complexity. The problem they have is they weren't one piece away from being really good. And actually, I sort of agree. The sad thing is they even seem to lose these really close 3-map series in exactly the same way. Like, if people don't know, you could go way back to when it really was just Fang and Graham and all. They used to do this all the time. Like, the amount of times Complexity could have won 2-0, but then losing 3 maps is absurd. Like, they're going to be one of the highest teams ever for that, like, in Tier 1 CSGO. Bearing in mind, they're not functionally a really elite team. Like, it's kind of shocking that they never get over that hump. So, I don't know what that comes down to. I will say one thing I'll throw in is, I'm not particularly calling for someone to be cut. I actually think Cole's fine relative to what pieces they have, but no one ever does seem to ask about the coach and the IGL situation. Like, those guys just get to stay forever, apparently, just stay 1 million years. And as a random aside, everyone else was fine with this, but this is where having that memory about esports history actually sometimes hurts, which is when I had to watch Henry G get excited about a highlight clip on LAN from Woxic. The whole time I was like, oh, bloody hell, what next? What next? We're going to have him commentate like a fucking wedding tape of his ex. What are we doing here? This is gross. Like, then if you don't know, guys, that's the guy that essentially ruined Henry's dreams. Like, he had a whole future ahead of him as a GM. That was the whole guy, Woxic, they put all his hopes and dreams into, only to find out that essentially, you know, Woxic doesn't play if it's online, doesn't give a shit. And you were about a year away from LAN, so bad luck, Henry G, I guess. So that one did burn me. But no, the problem with the Cole one is, like, essentially, I've been on this roller coaster too many times, boss. I can't get hyped for it anymore. Like, what I do is I just watch the game. I even sort of like, I'm so cynical now. I even do it. I sort of go, ooh, they've won that map. Let's see how they'll lose this second one in OT or 17-9. Like, and then I wait. And then when they lose it, I just go like, yeah, that's why I don't care about Complexity. Next game. So the real problem they have in their team, I've always said it, is this. I have a principle that the number one positions you need when you build a team is IGL or AWPA, and they haven't got either of them sorted. Those are the two semi-dodgy positions, which are like, all right, but are they all right? But are they good enough? But wouldn't you replace them about 50 people tomorrow? So I think the problem they have in that team is, I mean, here's the real issue if you call. You're now just getting all the, like, Team Liquid fucking expectations, essentially, because they're not an NA team anymore. So now you're going to get everyone actually scrutinising, which is sad. Whereas before you sort of got to cruise under the radar, and if you just did the odd upset, then it was cool. So I actually feel a bit bad for them. But I don't know how they can improve beyond this. Like, I mean, you guys talked about the specific players. The problem with their team in general has just been inconsistency. Like, the only player who ever actually like has consistency is Grim. That's about it. Beyond that, you're just hoping. Like, the sad thing is, Floppy's now done this himself about 10 times over the last 3 years. Like, he just has like 1 or 2 massive maps and then just goes right back to whatever his normal level is. So I can't get too hyped about it. I get why NA people care, but I don't. So whatever. We'll move on from that. Any final thoughts on Call, or should we just move on? There we go. Apparently it is like the wedding that Henry G was watching on that tape. Like, hold your peace. So everyone did. Cool. Right. My good point is actually, this isn't on brand, but it is if you hear the way I explain it, right? I'll give you I'll take, since Nero's never been on the show before, I'll bring you into the magical world of anecdotes about my life, Nero. So when I was a boy, you won't be able to relate to this because you're one of these Zoomers, aren't you, with the Sky TV and the internet and all that jazz, looking up highlights on YouTube. Never had all that when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, Nero, you have to understand, obviously you couldn't watch Premier League football because that was only on Sky and you had to pay loads of money for it, didn't you? So what you had to watch when you were a boy, believe it or not, is actually superior football at the time. What we had to watch was Serie A, because Serie A used to be for free on Channel 4 on a weekend, right? Because obviously it wasn't blacked out, and obviously at the time, football wasn't a globally exported thing, so I'm sure they got it very cheap. But the joke was, I would be watching what actually, like I say, inadvertently was actually a superior level of football at the time. And I would watch it, and believe it or not, I used to watch it and go, this is rubbish, man. Like, nothing's ever happening. Like, all they do, look, they just tackle them all. Like, they never get to score a goal. Because if you don't know, famously, Serie A in Italian football is like very defensive minded. It's all about defensive schemes. And essentially, the dream, famously, the Italian football team used to do this. The dream is to just win 1-0, to just score your goal, just defend correctly, and just win like the sort of like the most efficient way possible. So I used to watch these matches, Nero, and think, this is crap. Like, I want to watch, like, you know, end to end football like you do when you're a kid. You know, I want people just booting the ball up from the goalie and then just take take a shot straight away. And what I actually had to learn was that, look, it isn't like for a random fan, the most aesthetically pleasing form of football. It's obviously going to be very frustrating. But the reason I actually had to learn it was mega is because it meant, NER0, when a player did come along who could actually score loads of goals in Serie A, I knew they were like actually like a god, basically. It was like, holy fuck. But if they can essentially do that, what you do against normal defense, against the Italian, then they're just the best. So this is going to be my good point. My good point is actually what would be a nightmare for some people, which is they're back. Virtus.pro are totally back, guys. It's not a rumor. It's not a smoke signal. They're back. They're just fully back. They're back. They're doing all the shenanigans. They actually do have better firepower than they used to with the line that won the major. And I'll tell you right now, I don't know how high they can go because they were never actually the best team, but like they are going to torture so many teams in these tournaments now that they're back. And the reason I gave that anecdote, NER0, is I'm like everyone else. On one level, I do despise the way Virtus.pro plays the game. Like it's clearly not aesthetically enjoying. It actually does sort of ruin the way other teams play the game. But to use the anecdote before, what I do love about this team, and I learned to appreciate, especially in this period actually where they weren't at a bunch of events, is I want teams like that out there as a sort of like obstacle course for the other top teams. I want to actually see, like, if G2's banging everyone's head in, tell you what then, there's the fucking what the doctor ordered. Have a game against Virtus.pro, full 3-map session on some shit maps, and let's see actually, can you play all the forms of Counter-Strike now? Can you actually play every type of game? Can you actually escape? Because essentially to me, James just like fucking Jigsaw, isn't he? He's like, haha, you want to play a game? It's like, you're not actually about like, he's not good Counter-Strike. He's not here to win or anything. He's just here to ruin people's lives and pay them back through, I don't know, late round play or something. So what do you guys think? Is anyone else a fellow, like, I can't say VP enjoyer. Essentially, I just sort of, for me, enjoying VP is like that thing, you know, like some men just want to see the world burn. Like essentially that Michael Caine thing out of Dark Knight in it. I just like to see the world burn when a team liquid a G. I like to see these squads have to go up against VP. Just why shouldn't they? They should have to put up with that shit.
I actually love watching VP, but one disclaimer here is when I'm not co-streaming games, I watch a lot of games back at 2x speed. Like that's where it's very enjoyable, because then you get to just watch games back on the VOD and you're like, okay, what was VP starter in this round? Okay, it didn't work. Okay, I can just skip to the next round now. Watching it live, that's
oh, I see. Right, that's a good point. That's a good distinction.
Yeah, if I'm watching it, if I can just skip around, it's really, really interesting, because I'll understand their entire flow chart for how James thinks about the game. But for VP, actually, you'll hate this one, but honestly, I think Norbert's quite solid on a few maps for them. Actually, he's terrible at Ancient for whatever reason, but on Inferno, Pit, oh my god, he actually won them so many rounds at Pro League. It was fascinating. Like, he is seriously a Pit specialist. He's so good at playing off of his teammates, using counter utility, making sure that either one stays alive forever, or sometimes he even gets a multi-frag from it, because sometimes on the second or third A hit after he dumps his smoke, he'll just go for a swing that you don't expect if you're the opposing team, and then Norbert's going to just kill you in the side of the head. So he's actually
that's why he's a world champion, Maui. That's why he's a world champion at this game, son. That's why he's a world champion.
Hey, he's got one major. He's got a major.
Sadly, he does. We can't listen. We can't take it away from him. Like, no matter what we say, he has a major. You win, Matt. You know, I actually fucking love Nico or Guardian. Doesn't matter the existence. Fuck me. You win, Norbert. You get the major, mate. None of those great players. They don't get one. You get one though. Well done.
Norbert's just gonna hold up his finger and just say, "Count it." Count it. Count the ring. Count the ring. Kiss the ring. The thing is, most players aren't even good at that trash talk. Like, low key, I can't even lie. If you actually did that to me at an event or something like that, if I looked over and you were just like, what major? I would be mad triggered. And you're going to picture of Nico and just ripped it in half or something. All of us were wild on stream. Do that on camera. Someone do that scene on camera and rip like a pit. In fact, pull out all three have an existence. Well, they won't know who the fuck that is. Whatever. They might know who Guardian is, surely. Surely kids still know who Guardian is nowadays. That doesn't make me a boomer, does it, knowing who Guardian is? No, but just like the thing with VP being back and being actually good now is that, yeah, I do like just how ridiculous their style is, because I'm still very much of the opinion that, like, if you take out the nameplates away from a lot of meddling teams in the rank 13 through 20 range, it's really hard to tell the difference in terms of their strategies. You're seeing a lot of teams just being really cyclical with just going through the strat book, trying this play out that they saw another team try, and so sometimes it feels very lifeless. But I know when I'm watching a VP game, and that's nice. It's, even if I don't love it all the time, it's nice to know that there's still other people pushing different ideas into this space, and we're not actually moving towards just dare I say, like refinement culture, and we're all just moving towards the exact same strategy. You know exactly what I'm referring to, unfortunately. But it's just the way that everything is becoming the exact same, it feels like, because there's just a simply what best way to play the game. But no, James shows that that's not true, that there's something else out there.
Because the thing I can't handle is how come it does seem like, for real, it's like the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, but James found his own obelisk, didn't he? And it just conveyed a different message entirely to him, and he's just like divergent evolutionary path that none of us accessed at any point. Go on then, Nero, what do you think? Here's the thing, if you're a stats guy, you've got to low-key love VP in some fucked up sense, right?
Yeah, it's like the defensive football coaches as well. It's just they're funny because of how much they trigger people.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You gotta love him. You gotta love him with the shit talk and everything. But it's and that's until you're having to write a match report for them at like 11 p.m. And you're just like, can you just stop now? But yeah, I think it's great. Like the scene is quite homogenized, like with all the international teams as well. Like it is like kind of hard to tell between teams. I think that's a really good point. But yeah, I think it's just an issue with, like, you kind of want gatekeepers that all have different styles, and I think that's exactly what we want VP to be. And I really like the Mir pickup as well. I feel like people just kind of, I don't know if it was personality or what, but I feel like people just kind of forgot how good he actually is. I just do feel bad for Norbert as well, because like you said on Pit, he's quite good, but he's really getting the Sanji stuff now. Like some of the economy buys they're doing, where they have like even when they can afford AKs, they have 2 people on Tech 9s, and they just like do their opener. Like, did you see this? I think it was Inferno T-side against someone. So they had like 3 AKs, 2 Tech 9s, and they send the AKs up banana, and it's like, okay, well, and then like they get tagged to like 10 HP, and they just come back and throw another AK. But Norbert never gets the AK. It's never Norbert's turn on the AK. Once Norbert's got the AK, he's saving the AK for flip next round. Like it's completely fucked.
I like that.
But yeah, they're good for this scene. They're good to be here because it's just something different. And I know everyone comes at them for the saving, but what I kind of like about their saving is that it's actually not the best way to play. I kind of like that they're like, it's because it's kind of, you think it's like the meta, like they've got the economy game dialed out in a way no one else does, but you see kind of how it works against them. Like I like how it's actually flawed in a way. Like I like how people haven't just completely copied them, because you can see that like the T's just have so much bigger a bank against VP. Like they need to win more gun rounds in a row to actually break them. Like that happens quite a lot, and but I do like that they have a different style. I'm just glad it's not broken the game and everyone copies them. I think.
By the way, on
where they're at.
On that point, I feel like that's something that's actually really lost, which is they even do this really weird thing in VP, if you've noticed, where sometimes on T side, they actually have money to do a full buy, and they just don't. They do like 3 people buy, and then the next round, like the other 2 take a turn to buy like the AK, and they essentially have like what's like a half buy, but if they lose, a bunch of rounds in a row. And what's weird about that is that actually is a little bit like what people did at the end of CS 1.6 as like an economy breaking move, which was back then, like people only used to do like a full buy or like a pure save to get the whole team back, and people started doing half buys, and essentially you would do it. So it was sort of like the super soldier concept. You do it because you had like a simple or Neo or Forest, and then the point is them on an AK may as well be 1.5 times a normal player, you know. But the weird thing is VP does it now, and what's weird about it is like the difference is what you just said there. I get why they do it on CT side. The reason it's really effective, like you said then, is you feel like if you're the T's, you never actually show if they're saving. It actually makes it quite hard for you to know like what utility to use at the beginning of the round. Like, do you have to fully buy up again? Like, it does make you all. But the weird thing is when they do it on T side, I feel like it just kills them, dude. Like, it's like what's weird is it seems like you're right. It's not like they've just cracked something no one else has with the economy, because sometimes it seems like they get lost in their own buys. Like, I've seen some really weird ones the last. What do you think, Maui? What about this aspect of the style? Because the late round stuff, they don't have to save this way to do it. They just seem to choose to do this as well. There seems to be another like Jame idiosyncrasy, right?
Yeah. The buy that Nero was referencing, I screenshotted that and posted on Twitter. I remember they were like, who were they playing against that one? I think it might have been
probably Liquid.
Or it might have been G2. It might have been G2, and they actually won. They actually won that. Yeah, they won that map where they were just doing these crazy buys. I would like, okay, my take on it is that, well, the trade-off is obviously that if you're going to save more frequently than other teams, you're obviously taking away opportunities for your teammates to clutch. And if you have good late round players who can find just ways to break into a post-plant defense, then you're not even going to let them try out their abilities and take a crack at it. Because as soon as you lose one player, like I mean, it's the funniest thing is watching VP on CT side Inferno, and then you watch them literally lose one player at B, and they just don't even care. They never even tried moving. They literally knew immediately that the save was on. So, yeah, I mean, even sometimes they'll have utility and they won't even go for it, which is crazy to me. So, it's like you're just frequently you're playing Counter-Strike as if it's like a MOBA, and you're not even trying to like in MOBAs, you kind of feel like you pull out of the team fight, you try to like regather and everything for the next team fight, just so that you don't lose everybody. And it really feels like VP kind of they think about deaths in a different way than other people, where it's almost like a cumulative number as opposed to round to round. I don't know. It's like it's really, really strange to watch them sometimes, because they just take so fewer risks than other teams, and that's probably why they're less exciting. But it's kind of just whatever happens in the first 45 seconds for a lot of VP rounds for me, which is weird, but it's okay.
But that is based on stats though. It's like I think it's like 72%. Like opening kills are like 72% win probability. Like it is completely based on stats. It's just like I think it's a case of over optimization. It's like in football, like XG is this huge thing, right? But teams still take shots that are like not high XG, because you never know, like it could hit a deflection, and like things can happen that change low probability chances into higher ones. And VP, I think, over optimize for like they always need to win the round the 70% way. They don't like because they've got star power. Like these guys are good late round players, and they just never give them a chance. And I think like it's good for the scene that we have something different, but I don't think it's optimal, and I don't think that but I like that they exist, basically. Yeah.
Right, okay then. What is your bad point? What are you going to pick? Obviously, by the way, spoiler, there are a million. Since CS2 was on the rise, and there are a million things people can complain about. So what's bad at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of options for bad points, but the one I wanted to go for was that Valve haven't changed the economy, at least yet, at all for CS2. Because I think like NR12 is only going to shine a brighter spotlight on it, but it's just so hard to be a CT right now. Like this has been something that's been true ever since the first update 2019. Like OP's M4 and OP org might have hid it a little bit, but it's still here. Like you still need to win rounds with 3 people alive, and I think that's really contributing to the saving that people don't like, where it's the 2v3s and it's like this is like even if we win, like we'll lose next round and be double eco. Like this is just it makes retakes not worth it. And I think T's can just buy every single round. Like seeing these Galil buys in round 2, it's been like 4 years now, and they just don't care. And even in the patch notes where they talked about MR12, they were like, Valve were like bragging, like, oh, there's fewer uncontested rounds now. And it's like, yeah, but like at what cost, Valve? Like at what cost? Like this is like you're looking as a CT now, and there's just so many things, different things they could do. Like I think I asked Alchemist recently for the MR12 article what he would do, and he was like, okay, so CT's everything's too expensive. The fuse kit should be 200, a molly should be 400. Like why aren't M4s the same as AKs? Like because teams get the same amount of money in. Like I think we've kind of moved past the need for T's equipment to be cheaper. Like I think like I understand why that was a thing, but it's kind of now that you're looking at it from a purely competitive standpoint, I think the game would be better if it was more balanced, because raising it to 19, because people are saying just get rid of 1400 loss bonus, but then that's like the T sides are just going to have Galils every single round. Like it's just every T round is a gun round. You're playing against VP every single game, and it happens too often where CTs have really good streaks. They're playing really well, like in the gun rounds. A few of them go to post plants, they win a few retakes, and then they lose one round, and there you go. And the half changes. Like too many halves for me. Like it's too easy to adapt and then break the economy. Like you should need to adapt and then adapt again and again and again. And at the moment, you kind of like I actually think ecos are a really good part of CS. Like this is kind of a tangent, but I think it's really important to have like a lull in sports. I think sports that are too mayhem. It's why I've never got into basketball. There's I don't even know what they're fucking called. Points are scored too often, right? And that makes points feel like nothing. And I think CS is kind of suffering a little bit from having too many gun rounds, honestly. Like when every round matters, like I think I kind of preferred it back in the day because it was like 13 rounds, and this is not like old school, it's like 2016, but like when I really started getting into it, if it was a 13 and you won a big clutch, like that meant something. Whereas now there's like you've got to win 2 more gun rounds. And I just think generally the economy, I know why they've done it, because for casuals don't want a double eco, but I think they need to do it in a way where the CTs can be rewarded more for winning rounds with fewer than 3 people alive. And I think that maybe it's like, maybe you give them a reward for defusing and cut the T's reward for planting, because the $800 that all T's get from planting is like it in my opinion, it breaks the game. I think they made to make that smaller and then give the CTs maybe like give the T's 400 planting, but give the CTs 400 to defusing or something. Like just find a way to incentivize retakes, because I think the economy is the major reason why people save so much right now.
Yeah, I haven't broken down the numbers or anything to come up with exact figures for where I would want things to be, but I think the last point that you have is something that I would be trying to push for in any way that's possible, where going for retakes, I feel like that should just happen more, because I think, like, what is it? Valorant does it, like, you get less money if you just save in a post plant. Like, they basically, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's just say it's like you only get $1,000 more if you save because you let the bomb explode. But if you actually go for it, you're gonna get your full loss bonus or whatever the number is. Something like that would be probably nice, so that they'd have to actually weigh the option, like, oh, should we just instantly save and pull a VP? Like, oh no, we're not even gonna get enough money to rebuy all the utility and drop our teammates or whatever. So something like that. Another angle, I guess this is a bit of a tangent, but kind of something I've considered pretty strongly, is like the idea of taking out the pistol rounds, but because if you just start with gun rounds and you just try to like build the economy from there, I think that's actually a really, really bad idea. And maybe that's a completely other topic that I can get into another time. But the thing you were saying about the lulls and the way that the game flows, the way that it builds up naturally now with pistol rounds is something I am definitely a fan of. And I do believe that pistol rounds are a significant part of professional Counter-Strike and should be still a part of the game, and you shouldn't forgo those just to have a quick fix to try to fix the economy. I would like for Valve to go into the weeds and figure out what these numbers are. I'm kind of on the side of you right now, where just lower the cost of the defuse kit, lower the cost of the Molotov. I don't even know if it needs to be more than that, honestly. Just make it $400 cheaper to be a CT every single round, and I think that we have a much more balanced game, and one that isn't going to feel like you're taking concessions every single round just because you had 3 of your players die, but you still won.
Yeah, obviously this is a tricky one, because essentially, like, this is just a Pandora's box of like, what would we change about Counter-Strike? And not as Maury says, like, not every point's going to necessarily check out. But like, if here are some like historic ones, which is why I think the economy change was terrible. You know, when I gave that example, I said at the end of 1.6, people actually started to do this like VP style of half buying, where like 2 or 3 people have the AK, and then you don't always 100% buy up. I mean, they sometimes did it as a way to do it on rounds where you couldn't full buy, but also it became a style, like on certain maps like Dust 2, you sometimes just did it this way. The other reason why that worked on T side is because the T side chooses where the attack takes place in theory. So as a result, like the analogy goes, like, whereas if you were a defensive side, think about in war, if you have to defend all positions, in theory you need to have all your best weapons at all positions in case they attack there. Whereas if you're the one choosing where the attack takes place, you only have to have your weapon at that place, that one spot. So to me, the T side has always been able to get away with a lower use of the economy, never mind the price being cheaper than the CTs anyway. The AK is cheaper, the Galil's cheaper. You could always run like fucking pistols and have 2 AKs and have people standing behind the AKs that pick them up as they die, and essentially you get like 4 people's use out of 2 AKs. You can't do these things by default as CT. Like, these things don't exist in the same way. Economy, everyone has to buy up the economy on CT side. On T side, again, depends what you're doing. If you're doing like a fairly simple like one-off attack on a site, you might need half the utility. Like, 2 players might not even have to buy any utility in the game. So to me, that's why already it doesn't really make sense the way it's priced. And then on top of that, the idea that like the CTs have like worse everything or equal, but it's more expensive, that just doesn't work in the modern day, not with the changes now. And yeah, the killer for me is like, as CTs especially, like, half of what Counter-Strike even is, this is why the other thing people never brought up as a change is obviously the round timer. The other thing as well is the reason why like a lower round timer, for example, would help a lot of these problems. It would both help the economy and it would help the length of the games. Is a lower round timer means you don't have to like re-smoke 1 million fucking times as a CT. Like, these are things that you have to do that just cost the CTs money. Essentially, for the CTs to just exist on the map and not die, they sometimes have to use utility, whereas Ts don't have to do that almost ever. So to me, there's so many like sort of assumptions built built into the game of Counter-Strike that were never built in originally 20 plus years ago when someone came up with these concepts. But we just keep these things and we act like it's like some sacred cow and you can't tweak those numbers. Like, why can't we? Like, I would spin it the other way, NER0, and be like, this is why, sadly, there's no liaison with Valve that we can ask this. The question I would ask them is, why are CT things more expensive? Because as far as I can tell, for real, it's just some stupid answer like, well, that's a real item, and in real life, the Americans pay more. Like, who cares about that? You know what I mean? Like, that can't be a real reason to, like, fuck up the economy in the game now. Like, nowadays, we have to accept we have to accept it's a fantasy game, and, we're just actually trying to, like, balance the meta of how we esports people play it. We're not really doing it for, like, realism reasons anymore. Like, that can't be the biggest reason. So, to me, the sad thing about it is there are so many variables you can tweak on all of these, but at the moment, everyone just seems to have, like, one massive change that they want to come in with, which, if you notice, those sorts of changes just have their own problems that come up. It's like whack-a-mole. There's always some other shit that pops up when you do this. The real sad thing of all this is, well, I'll say it without tooting my own horn, but I'm just going to do it now, is this is exactly what I actually told people 3 years ago. I told them the second that it became obvious that when you won the CT pistol and they planted, and then you lost the second buyback, force back from the T's, that your economy was ruined. I remember just thinking, like, is everyone just cool with this? Like, we're all just cool. This is Counter-Strike now. Because if everyone remembers, all the teams, it was even literally like fucking Vitality and NAVI that used to just abuse that all day long. Because if you had Simple or Zemu, of course you just made him a super soldier on the second round, and he had a better buy than any of the CTs. Like, I must have seen them individually win that round like 30 times just off the top of my own head and just break the game completely. Like, that's the sort of shit where it's like, when people tell me this bollocks about how they've met Valve, why does none of that ever come up? Why is that topic never on your mind? Why instead are you just like, oh, cool, sick use of lens flares? Like, you're just the biggest fucking marks of all time, you idiots in Counter-Strike. You never ask them meaningful stuff like, will people in CS2 be banned forever if they were VAC banned when 12 years old? You don't ask them actually like interesting questions that would like matter and affect people's lives. But apparently it's just... Well, here's the maddest one of all. I thought about, should I even bring this up on a show, but I'm going to do it anyway, because fuck it. Right, here's the most ridiculous, egregious one I've seen. And this just shows how when you like people, and I even like him, it's the aforementioned Launders again. Because I like him, even I'm not going to go too far with this NER0. But did anyone see the tweet by Launders, where when he was going back and forth, like, you know, when sort of like him and Loba were like, subtweeting each other, but not. They were sort of both just tweeting about the same topic, about subtick and stuff like that, and movement or whatever. But because they were both doing it at the same time, I think people thought they were like addressing each other, but I don't think they were. I think they were just giving their own separate, independent thoughts about subtick and the movement in the game. Launders did this really weird one where the problem is, I'm pretty tuned in on when he's being sarcastic. I think he was being serious. He actually implied, for real, you can go look this up, I don't think it's deleted. He did a tweet where he implied that like everyone's complaining about the movement, but that secretly, this is real, but secretly he knows a bunch of KZ guys doing jump maps that had like privately told Valve a bunch of things about movement that they didn't like. And Valve had fixed it, but just not updated the patch notes. And he just, seriously, this must be either the greatest troll of all time, or he meant this. And he just put that out there as like a real tweet. So apparently in his world, by the way, Valve's even just having like secret back and forth people like, yeah, I'll just fix all that without telling anyone. Yeah, oh, it's fixed now. Like, what are we doing with this game, mate? Like, first of all that just sounds fake as fuck. Like, none of that's going on. Secondly, just ask them, like, interesting things. Like, the top two things people must ask Valve. Forget all of this shit about... I don't even care about the movement stuff, but that will inevitably get fixed. That's just obvious, right? The two things we need to ask them about is, one, what the fuck goes on with the map pool? Is this the map pool forever now? Like, is Counter-Strike for the next 3 years an Uber's Vertigo and Nation? Like, is everyone else just cool with that? I'm not. That's fucking garbage. I even think half of the reason people hate the games being too long, it's because they're not just too long. They're too long on fucking Anubis, Vertigo and Ancient. Like, that's the real reason no one wants to watch a fucking Counter-Strike match. And then secondly, the economy's just been fucked for 3 years now. Like, these problems have existed the whole time, and nothing that's been changed is going to address them. And by the way, MR12 doesn't address this particular topic at all. It doesn't, like you say, NER0, it actually has no effect on it whatsoever. I mean, by definition, yes, there will be less rounds, so it can't happen as many times, but it doesn't actually fix this. It's still the exact same economic problem.
Now that I've co-streamed like all of Pro League, okay, I also notice my viewership on Vertigo goes down every time significantly, literally significantly. I'm sure I have something to do with that with my viewers, but also it's literally like I'll get like 200 something on Mirage, and then it goes to like 110 or something like that. It's just like it halves almost. Okay. I'm like, what? People just don't want to watch these maps at all. Oh man, there's so many things with this whole like what can Valve do. I actually also think that if we like lowered round time, I actually think that it would make Inferno a lot better too, honestly. Like it would make it less easy to breach into the B bomb site, which is what so many top teams do now, because the CT's utility would actually be able to block them off. Because every time I watch an Inferno match now, I just see the one B site defender dump utility, cycle through. They use 3 or 4 smokes, but it's not enough time because the T's can always exec when there's still like 25 seconds left because they're just holding on to banana for the entire time. You can try mauling top car, you can try smoking off the half wall again, you can try to retake that space, but the T's don't care. Like the T's honestly are just like, fine, we'll just sit behind it for another 20 seconds and then we'll just exec later unless you're going to push us and flank us. But our one guy that's holding all of these flank angles is totally fine, whether he's in the middle pit or he's just holding from alt mid. Like all these are totally fine options. So yeah, I think Inferno's been too solved out with this amount of time left on the clock, honestly.
And CS2 is going to make that worse as well, because the way the smokes fade, you have to wait like an extra 1 or 2 seconds.
Right.
Like when I've played it, it feels like it's your time to go, and then there's another 2 seconds before you can actually see anything. So I don't know if that's an Inferno problem, but I'd be very down for, rather than switching MR15 to MR12, and this is another point, I would have been much more happy if they shortened the round time and shortened how long ETLC lasts, because so much of CS is just like, oh, we're just waiting for this smoke to go, we're just waiting for this smoke to go. It's like, does it need to be like this? Is this really something that just we're completely wedded to? Like, I don't think it needs to be.
You know, I would even say, being as, like, from what I've seen, like, the CS2 smoke seems way more powerful. Dude, I think you could even, like, half the time it lasts, because it's essentially better. But so just make it better, but last less time. That actually adds more of a tactical element to the use. Like, if anything now, it's just too fucking play by numbers. You just throw it and it lasts forever, doesn't it? Right, okay then, Maui, what's your bad point?
Mine is the obvious result that is probably the most shocking of all of the ESL Pro League group stage, which is Cloud9 not making it through to the playoffs. And the way I frame it is just that they have simply regressed. They are literally worse than when they were playing with Buster.
You've simply regressed. Yeah, come on, hit me.
Yeah, they're literally worse right now than they were playing when Buster was slotted in for Axile as a stand-in. Even though Buster wasn't even practicing, he wasn't even playing Counter-Strike. But what I saw from them in this group stage was just abhorrent. The way that losing to Complexity, I wanted to give it at first to be credit to Complexity, but then Cloud9 lose.
I thought that's the sort of fucked up world space Maui has to live as an NA fan. Like, on the one hand, he's like, this was a really bad sign for Cloud9, but wait a minute, for now I'll choose to believe it's just really good for Complexity, actually. Like,
yeah,
my God, okay,
gotta find some angle no matter what. But then they play Liquid and they lose that game, and the maps that they lost to me felt fairly convincing, and then they lose to Eternal Fire pretty badly, and they already had beaten Eternal Fire already to kick off the group. Like, this Cloud9 team right now has so many problems. Okay, and I know that what people want me to address is, was kicking nafany the wrong move? I don't think so. I still do not think that was. I am still standing behind the fact that I think that nafany was not the right leader for them. That being said, the way that he's calling for bet boom is different enough from how Cloud9 play that I have to start to believe that there's a couple things that could be going on here. But first and foremost, I think Groove has to be on the hot seat immediately. I do think that the way that Electronic was calling with Navi versus how he's calling with Cloud9 is kind of a meld. It's not exactly the same as either team was playing before. So we're getting this kind of hybrid style of how Cloud9 and Groove wanted to play the game and how Electronic was playing under Blade. So I don't think it's necessarily... Like, I think the style has actually in some ways improved, but I just see that individuals and fundamentals have regressed on top of that. By that, I mean, Cloud9, I think through the group stage, had the 4th worst trading of any team, and you would see this team pop into bomb sites, and it's like, this is a set piece, and one guy is 10 feet in front of his teammate. You're seeing players die so far away from each other on this roster that it's like, how did they even dry run these strategies? And this is kind of what I actually remember from the old Cloud9 2, where their execs were probably the weakest part of their game overall, even though I thought the defaulting style that they used before was also quite bad. But I'll say that the defaulting now, it's actually serving a pretty conscious purpose. I'm seeing players get slotted into nice positions, but then I feel like it's resembling 2016 SK, like when Fallen was trying to set up, say, like fur or even cold sometimes to get into like a nifty spot and then try to move the rest of the attack and just leave that guy there forever. I'm starting to see them do that with Hobbit. So Hobbit's been this guy that they're trying to set up into a few of these positions like mid on Ancient. He's trying to get him into top mid all the time. And Hobbit is just not equipped to do that. Like, Hobbit is he's just not a great player at taking that kind of space. And it's led to Hobbit suffering in some of his positions on T side, and I'm not going to give Hobbit a complete pass because he still has a lot of his same CT spots. So the CT side, the way that he's gotten worse on CT side is just his fault. Like he's some reason just bad now on some of those, but I will say, like, when rounds break down for Cloud9 before, they were so good at playing off of each other. When nafany was calling, yes, but I think there was just kind of the cohesion that this team had built up over playing with each other through so many online officials. That has been lost. They are not the same team in 3v3 situations that they were once before, and I think that has to do with probably conflicting styles and calling between Electronic Perfecto and the other three core members of Cloud9. So there's a lot of things to pick at for why Cloud9 have gotten worse, but the overall bad point is that they obviously are worse now than they were even 2 months ago.
Yeah, I think the thing it kind of seemed like at the end of nafany's tenure, at least, like Groove did the interview right this week where he was like, we've got a lot of voices in the team, and I think that was always an issue for nafany as well. Kind of like he said, I think he also said like he doesn't feel like the smartest player on the team. Like it felt like it was more like a leadership committee than nafany's team by the end of it. It kind of felt like Shiro, Hobbit, Groove, nafany like all could say something, and it was kind of like in the air who had the final say. And I think maybe they've kept a lot of, even though nafany's gone, like they've kept a lot of the leadership structure, and that's why we see a lot of the same style. Like not completely. It doesn't feel like Electronics fully got the keys to play his own way. And I think keeping Groove, keeping Hobbit, like those are kind of the moves where you kind of see they are kind of trying to keep a bit of their old identity, and like that makes sense for team play reasons and things like that. But I do think they're suffering from like just conflicts in terms of identity and things like that, and also Axile's form is really troubling as well, and it's after what Bit played like under Electronic. Maybe this is a little bit connected, I don't know if that's a stretch, but it's kind of a little bit worrying where Axile's kind of had this drop off where he's not the phase smashing Axile anymore, and he is like Hobbit, like they've not, like I did an article on the new Cloud9 because the roles like on like literal positions are exactly the same for all of them. Like that it's the in-game role that's changing, not like the literal spot on the map. And I think that's what we're seeing with Axile and Hobbit, is that they're playing all the same positions, but they're having to play them a little bit differently, and it's just throwing them off quite a lot. And I think Hobbit especially, like his individual form speaks a lot to like the things you were saying, like the bad spacing as well. Like it's often is him left on an island because of that. And yeah, it just isn't the super team we all maybe thought it might be.
Yeah, the obvious first problem is, like, you can just see on the stats, like, Axile has just never been the Axile he was before thus far in this lineup, so that already is very alarming. It's also why, unfortunately, it is always so tricky, specifically with IGLs, when you, like, give them like, oh, this is the pros and these are the cons, because sometimes what you think are actually like the pro is like working this way, maybe that actually was tied into what they did. Like everyone essentially assumed with this team that like, oh, nafany is a bad caller, therefore like he's only bringing a negative effect, so if you replace him, like you already get to keep Shiro and Axile stay exactly the level they're at, and if anything things just improve. And it's like, for all we know, being as it looks like a complete clusterfuck of like who actually did do what. Notice how the one thing they're not doing in any of these interviews is ever clarifying NER0. They just make it more confusing. Like they don't ever just come out and go, by the way, here's what nafany actually did in his style, and here's whether or not we've kept it or updated it, or whether even one person is the IGL. Like they've never even confirmed ever, was he the one IGL? Like they just give a different set of answers for every interview as far as I can tell. So the really annoying thing is, for all we know, maybe Axile actually, maybe some of nafany's styling of calling helped him. Maybe that was actually calling to things he liked in the game, or the timings he liked. Like I can tell you right now, one thing I had to learn from sports, which I think a lot of fans get lost on, is the easiest person to be popular with fans is the coach who is like popular with the players. But sometimes those are terrible coaches. Sometimes they just give the player everything they want, or they give the player like what they shouldn't want, essentially. Like they give you a freedom that maybe fucks up your game or limits it or makes you too one-dimensional. So my obvious concern immediately is is, and this was always my concern when they made this a super team, is I never actually considered electronic IGLing part of any super team. Like, it's on paper these names would be a super team. First of all, like, Axile's never showed up the way he did before, so there's a massive concern. Hobbit's only gotten worse. Electronic's just all right. I mean, even he's not, it's not like he's had some lease on life. He's just all right again. It's actually not that dissimilar to NAVI. He has a map that's good, he has a map that's bad, and then you go, well, he's just the IGL, isn't he? Like, and so it's like, people don't know. Are they judging him on his fragging? Are they judging him on his IGLing? So, quite frankly, if you look at it, if you took all the nameplates off, whoever the IGL of this team is hasn't done a good job. Like, you just look at the way the team plays. By the way, this team cannot win a close fucking game to save their lives. Like, this is one of those squads where, like, the joke is they lose. It's like complex. They lose all the time, fucking 16-14, 16-13. So that's a really disturbing sign to me right there. So the difference is, unlike the NAVI one at the beginning of the episode, where there's all these reasons I could give it, like, tons of time, why would I give this team more time? Like, the real problem, in my opinion, when you've got an actual super team of players is, once you figure out it's not working, you should actually pretty quickly switch up. Like, because the pieces imply you could, like, retool this job. Like, to me, the saddest thing about this will be if they waste, like, another 6 months and just decide, like, no matter what, Electronic must be awesome as the IGL, and we're not going to change any players. Like, if I were them, if anything, I would be looking already and think, like, maybe in 2-3 months, one player move, whatever it might be. Maybe it's an IGL comes in, maybe it's someone to replace Hobbit. You choose what it is, but I would be thinking about a player move, because the rest of the lineup is too good. These pieces are way too good to be this bad. And the sad thing is, if you actually look at the placings, these are basically the placings that nafany Cloud9 got, isn't it? So right now, I have to say, you have to give it, like, this move would get, it's like a D. It's not the worst, but it hasn't worked, and you certainly haven't gotten what you hoped of it. And the joke is, you don't even have bloody nafany to blame anymore. Now you actually have to blame other people, and that's fucking everyone up, isn't it? It's not that nice a feeling anymore when we have to blame other people, including potentially maybe the stars themselves. Like, I'll tell you what, mate, there was a series the other day where Shiro played like absolute dog shit, and when I was watching it, I was like, bro, you can't blame nafany for that. He's not in your fucking ear telling you when to peak or not. Like, that's just you, mate. You just have to live with that one. So the actual real joke of it all is, if anything, welcome to the real world, Cloud9 players. You will actually now get scrutinised. You had one guy shielded you from that for like a fucking 6-9 months or something. So it's going to be hard sledding from here, as we say in English. So I think that's a good one to put as a bad point, because I can't see any upside to that, mate. The saddest thing about their one is, like I said about the NAVI one, the positive for NAVI is, like I said, they've never even had a game where it all came together. Even when it does come together on Cloud9, they don't actually look that great. Like, the saddest thing is, like I said, if I took the nameplates off, would anyone actually know this was a super team? I don't know that you would. I don't know that you would, quite frankly. I think I could trick a lot of you. Right, okay then. We'll go now to my bad point. Right, my bad point is going to be very specific. It's not going to be, because we've done this as a bad point a billion times now, it's not just going to be heroics sort of a bit crap, aren't they? It's actually going to be, in light of what I just did with Cloud9 and NAVI, it's the way Heroic loses these games, mate. Because I'll tell you the saddest thing of all. If you go and look at the raw stats, there's only one player's had like a vaguely meaningful stat drop, which is just Yabi, if people don't know. Because at big events, he had a lot of like pop-offs, and he was looking really good. In fact, he was obviously even in major contention for certain MVPs at some of the tournaments. Aside from him, though, the real sad thing is this team now gets beaten by seemingly anyone in the top 20. They lose way too early. They obviously aren't anymore an elite team. But if you actually watch how they play and how the players play, some of it hasn't even changed. Like, I can't... The reason I've got to put this as my bad point is I actually find it really disturbing. Like, I think it's hard to know what's wrong with this team. And I'll just say a very brief point, which goes like this. This is why I think whenever you're a team that, in my opinion, wins not just off individuals, but off, like, the style that you play. So, like, old school Ents was like this to finish, and so you can even say the current Ents is somewhat like this, Heroic themselves. The downside of that is when anything goes slightly wrong, you can all still be playing as a team. You can all still be doing all the right stuff. You could just be bad. Like, you essentially, you actually are the cliche that every other team wants to believe. Like, you win as a team and you lose as a team. Like, the saddest thing is, if I was watching this squad, I don't think there's even any obvious fixes for this, like, team. Like I'd have a hard time, like, picking who to cut. Like, I know every moron on Reddit's just going to go, like, Kurt Tessus, because they just picked, like, 8 years ago, they all had to flip a coin when they were born. And the doctor goes, right, you won't know what these 2 words mean yet, but just say one of these 2 words, Tessus or shush. Like, all right. And then whoever they picked, like, right, in 20 years, you have to just irrationally think that guy has to be cut for no reason, but don't worry about the game or anything. So, yeah, I don't even know what I would do to fix this team. Thoughts, boys?
Yeah. So a couple things that really kind of spelled doom for Heroic for me is when, I think it was an interview I did with Shush at Cologne in a post game where Kush was trying to talk about how Heroic were trying to change their style so that they would be able to beat underdog teams better, and I was kind of like, what are you doing with that? And I think it's like playing more default and less about doing all these cool macro elements that made Heroic so uniquely them. And I think they started doing that more. And what I've noticed at ESL Pro League is I was getting frustrated about this when I was watching them play some of these lower tier teams. They would just play default and play back because they wrongly assessed that the reason they were losing these big games is because they were doing too many plays, and that would get them caught out. And I actually think it was quite the opposite. I think the reason that they were losing in the big games is because they ended up choking and freezing more. They started freezing up a lot more. They stopped running all the cool little mid-round ideas that they used to do, and they would think, no, guys, we're better. I think this is the conversation. They said in a huddle, hey, we're better than a lot of these players one-to-one, so why don't we just play a default style where we're going to cover all of our bases and we're less likely to be upset? But the reality is that the reason that they were losing some of those big games, like to Gamer Legion, is I was like, oh, you guys are not doing as much. You guys are freezing more. You guys are actually all those cool ideas that they would have, they just kind of threw them out the window because I feel like their comms would just get worse in high pressure moments. So now, even in a low pressure moment, they probably are thinking to themselves, we're better than these guys. So if we just chill out, we're going to be able to hold our own. We're going to win these games. And it just erased the style that made them so consistently strong. Like they were the kind of team, and even SDY in the interview he had at ESL Pro League after they beat Heroic, he said, when I used to play Heroic, I used to get flanked all the time. That never happened today because they stopped doing stuff. They started playing on their heels all the time, just believing that they're going to bail themselves out of situations. And this is a cycle that I've seen in teams past, especially when they hit very high levels, that the way that every bad team comes up is like, basically they put forward a style that's really unique. And I think the best example of this ever was LGSK. Fallen put together a style that was incredibly unique. It actually was meta defining, and then they started rising the ranks through that. And what started happening is that the individual form of the players rose with the fact that their style was good. And so all of the players start to believe, because they look at HLTV rating, they start to think, oh, I'm the shit. I'm the reason that we're doing so well. And so they say, well, no, we don't need to do all those cool plays. We don't need to keep reinventing our playbook because we are the best players in the world in terms of individual form. But that's a poor assessment. The real thing is that you're getting stats because the system is helping you get those stats. Your IGLing is helping you. The way you're calling, your team philosophy is putting all those numbers forward. And so what LGSK did, and the way that they fell off, in my opinion, is they started playing more default. They started playing back more. They stopped really actually going for stuff. Is the reason FaZe is failing right now. FaZe is doing the same exact thing. They aren't as active. They aren't working off of their teammates as much anymore. They're trying to just play off of individuals. And for some reason, Heroic also wrongly assessed that they're a good team of individuals, when in reality, all of these teams were good as with the good teamwork foundation that they had set for themselves. And then they wrongly think that it's the fact that they're such good players that got them to where they are, when that's just false.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing with Heroic as well is that firepower-wise, they've always been an overperformer, right? Like this whole duration, like man for man, they don't have the star power of other teams, and it's the kind of the floor. It's like you can't ask for better anchors than Shush and Tessus. Like Tessus plays a few good spots, but predominantly anchor. And you can't ask for better than that. So it's kind of the star power you're looking at when you kind of like the Yabi drop off is huge for me, because I think Heroic looks like the best team in the world when Yabi was their best player. Like when he was the one actually getting the MVPs, because he just has way more impact in like one rounds and things like that. He just does have a little bit extra that Stown never really had in those big games as well. Like he was one of the only players who doesn't drop off as much as like Shush, Tessus, and Stown. And his drop off has been real. Like I have no idea how that's happened. That's like really concerning, considering he's supposed to be the kind of the next big Danish thing, really. That was kind of how he was built up for a little bit at the time, and and then also it's like there are no solutions. Like you look around and it's like what free agents are there? Like the only players for my money that would improve Heroic right now are like blameF device, and then the list ends. Like they're gonna have to look internally for a solution, and then that's almost even harder because you're right about the default style thing. It's like it was always their team play and always their style that made them be able to compete with these super teams. And if they're losing that, then they're kind of losing their edge completely. And I don't think a player like it always feels bad to kind of attack not attack, but like come at the highest rated player. But I think Stown does put a ceiling on this team in terms of not just his playoff game, but in terms of his like group stage form as well. It's kind of like he's set up so much in the system as the kind of trading guy, and he never really has the superstar numbers to back it up, and if Yabi's falling off as well, like Stound's really your only like player that is the star player, and he's just not quite at the level where he can get them out of a slump on his own. He's not that type of player, so they really need to get back to the system that got them where they are. And I just hope that game Legion loss didn't break them, because sometimes it does look like it might have done, even though they did win the spring final.
It's funny that if people don't know, Stown himself was someone, if you remember, during that whole like cheating Hunden thing, where he actually, I mean, he even cried on camera. He said all that stuff about how it was affected him and how like he couldn't handle the idea that like in real life people would hate on him and stuff. Because I have to say, mate, he's been given such an enormous pass by the community for this entire time where Heroics had all these chokes. Like people, in fact, that's one thing I'll give as a positive to Cadian's whole style. It does essentially mean people just attack Cadian if they lose, so it does work in that regard. Because man, I've never seen a player put up the numbers Stown does. If people don't know, his numbers never drop off. His numbers are always around like that level that should be like, you know, like borderline top 10 player in the world. He always is. For each event, you'll go and look and it'll always be at that like 1.15, 1.2, sometimes 1.2 rate. But you'll never see him late in the tournament. It's actually amazing how consistently he just disappears in these games. And the way he does it is crazy, because it's not like he has the game where it's like he shits the bed. It's not like he goes 2-11 or something and he just has the really quiet ones. It's like, my joke is, it's like that thing where the kid at school just keeps his head down at the back so the teacher doesn't call on you. It's like he somehow can just quietly have these like 16 kill games and then end the tournament, and then overall the numbers still look fine, and it just checks out. Because I know what you mean, like on the one hand, like he is in theory the best player in the team, but that's like you said about the Yabi one. The difference is, if you have to choose who's going to be the top rated, you would choose Yabi top rated instantly, because that probably means you win a couple of massive games and he wins a clutch and has a big, like, his impact on T side was obviously huge, etc. The Stown one to me is really bizarre though. Like, the joke is, half the time when people bang on about blameF, I'm like, he plays in Astralis though, bro. Like, Stown plays in fucking Heroic. They're supposed to have won like the last 4 majors, and we all going to ignore this and act like it's all just fine, because that's actually a real bomber to me. Like, that guy's just completely plateaued. Wherever he got to his level, it's just stayed there for some reason. It doesn't seem like he actually gets worse or a bet. He just stays there. It's just the same player for like a year and a half now. I don't get it. It's a bit of a bomber to me, mate. Right, let's move on then. Because spoiler, we're not going to solve that in the next 5 minutes, and neither is Heroic for the next 3 years, so enjoy those majors. Right, let's go to the ugly now. Right, NER0, what is your ugly point?
Well, it was going to be, it's a Heroic one as well, but it was going to be the kind of, I'll kind of expand it because we've done a lot on Heroic, but kind of the kind of death of the national team and kind of how that's affecting Heroic specifically, in terms of there's just not enough talent that you can kind of have quick fixes in like a Danish team, for example. Like, I'm not sure there's enough talent in Denmark for 2 top 5 teams, basically. I think it's the kind of thing where a merge of Astralis and Heroic can kind of break the glass ceiling that Heroic were hitting, but that's never going to happen, and then that's kind of where you're left with Heroic trying like nut allegedly and things like that. Like, this is where you're left with, and names like Eztag coming up, and like Dupree, who Heroic who Vitality have discarded, and kind of recognized that the Rio and Paris was like maybe his last dance. And then because then you're looking at the Heroic now, and it is literally a case of they're going to have to fix from within or get a miracle out of someone, because there's just the reason they're competing with all these international teams that are just getting these like, and it's just so much harder for them to do a GM job, do a Moneyball job, because you see what Astralis did with Buzz and Stare, and they tried with Altex, who I think is solid, but also just so raw. It's like these players that are coming up, even in the Danish scene, that is normally like the fountain, right? Like, this is the scene that's immune to the international team, and now I think we're getting to the point where I think it's going to be really hard for a Danish team to be number one. And I think Heroic actually overperformed a lot in the last 2 years based on the system. And once the system starts failing, we're going to see that it really is like the international teams and the Russian-speaking teams that are able to have the firepower and the system. And unless the Danish teams merge, I just don't think they're ever going to be able to match the firepower. Yes.
Okay.
This usually is a lineage problem with IGLs, and I will say that 2 guys that have kind of dipped out of that sort of IGL rotation in the Danish scene are obviously Hunden, and I guess I would even cite Bird from Sky, who's now, what team is he on now? Is he on
0-0 Nation?
Yeah, 0-0 Nation. So he's not necessarily bringing up Danish players anymore. And now you're looking at some of the IGLs on these lower tier Astralis teams, and I guess is TMB and is Rawls an IGL? Like, I don't even know who the IGL is for Preezy and Sprout. That's usually kind of, to me, what has helped the Danish space, though, is that there was such a wealth of in-game leaders for so long. And actually, in some sense, they're all on good teams now. You got Kerrigan, Hooksy, Snappy, Cadian, and they're all on top 10 teams, and even blameF, actually, for that matter. So it's kind of like they've all consolidated and found their places where they should be. Like, I don't think any of those guys are undeserving in some of the, like, at least that general ranking system. If you want to go 1-to-1 for players, you could maybe make some changes. But, like, either way, with the tier 2 scene in Denmark seemingly having a drought of in-game leaders, it might take a little while for that information to be passed on to the next generation of rising talent, because there's still some names that you would look at in some of these teams that could do something, like Zyphon everybody was talking about for a while. So I don't necessarily think that it's lights out for that space. It's just that I don't know, like, I mean, I don't actually find as much of an issue with this, but I will say, like, as a whole, the generic Euro mix squad, like I was kind of talking about earlier, in that 12th to 20th range, that all kind of run the same strats as each other, that to me is always kind of less appealing than a team with an identity, and having a nationality behind you just instills an identity from the get-go.
The other problem as well is that, for whatever reason, no one's ever explained this. Like, this is why one thing that's quite boring about esports to me, I'll say this in my own inimitable way, because it's only me can say it, is I actually am bored of, like, if I want to know something, I just have to always find out myself. Like, no one else can ever just find out for me. Like how is everyone cool with the idea that Heroic in CSGO has been an elite squad for like 3 years now, but no one even actually knows? Do they even ever make offers for big players? Have they ever tried to buy a big name player? Were they ever in the mix to buy, like, a blame? Have they? As far as I know, no. Like, they're never involved with reports and rumours. No one ever even, it's never, you notice how even those scammer Russian fuckers never do the, like, Heroic plus device. Like, there's never, like, a cool rumour comes out with Heroic. Secondly, the players they do sign, look, they've killed it so far. Like, if you actually look at the moves they did make since they got to number 1 online, when they used to have Borup back in the day, and Nico, the actual moves they've done have been killer. Like, every move's been actually like a slight upgrade, or in the longer run, a big upgrade, and kept them in good position. But it's never superstar names. So the saddest thing right now in the Danish scene is you have Heroic, who seemingly either can't or just won't NER0 attempt to get big name players. Like even if those guys are available, remember, once upon a time, Device was on the market. He was going, people knew for ages he might be going back to Astralis. Never even attempted to get him, as far as I can tell. Carrigan was out there, just out in the wilderness, as far as we know, never attempted to get him. They haven't tried to get anyone, as far as I can tell. They've just gone for people they chose and they picked out and scouted. So the real issue to me is when someone's an elite squad, the fastest way to get back to the top is add a big name that just happens to, like, bring something different to your team. Could be like a config or a blameF or a device, like you say. But that doesn't seem like Heroic's even interested in that. And then secondly, if you did make, like, let's say you free every player from every roster, and we have to make a second Danish team that's not based on Heroic players, like, I can make you a banger lineup already. I've got, like, Carrigan, Device, blameF, Config, Valde, like, there's a lot of fucking names. But have you noticed those names are all fucking out there in the international scene pretty much, and they're all people that, quite frankly, I think this is another issue as well. The other reason why I don't think you'll see national teams again is, unless the national team is an elite team, I also don't think a lot of them are going to get paid that much money. I think they're going to become these weird, like, smaller projects. So the other issue is people like Carrigan aren't going back to smaller teams now. Like, they're staying for the big check and they're going to ride out the rest of their career. If you're someone like a Config, your whole aim now isn't to be in Heroic. It's just to get as many foreign checks as you can and go from NIP and next year being Maus. You know what I mean? That's like your career path from now on. So I also get the vibe that in the Danish scene, the gap is now too much. Like, the other thing that sucks is whoever the second and the teams that were the MSLs and the Snappy teams of old, it's like they were training the next person who basically only needs the shot. He only needs the invite to Astralis and he's ready. Now, the other Danish players are down in tier 2. They're so far away that, like, it would be irrelevant to give them a shot now, NER0. Like, I bet even if, like I know Astralis did the Stair guy pick up, right? That's a gamble. Like, we only saw the guy play, like an RMR, like the odd tier 2 tournament, not many lands. So, like, I also feel like you've made it worse for yourself. Like, now if you actually want to do the equivalent of what back in the day would be picking up someone like a Magisk, you're going to be doing a crazy gamble. Now, that's going to be more like a fucking Monacy gamble, where you're just hoping the guy jumps all the way from online tier 3 games to, like, hello, you're just playing kind of 8 tier tomorrow. Are you any good? Like, I think that's also too much. So, in some ways, Denmark has actually ripped out their own infrastructure in that regard. And part of it wasn't intentional. It was just that these big names went for money elsewhere. I mean, by the way, it definitely doesn't help things that those Astralis players went and joined Vitality and took the big box. Like, I'll just say as an aside on the heroic thing, we didn't address it much. This should actually show you, if you're a heroic fan, what I'm talking about with the fact that, like, why are they never involved in the market? Dude, there are actually heroic fans asking for Dupree, right? Let's just pause a second, guys. So the guy that 1 second ago, as long as I didn't say he was going to join heroic, you're all cool and agree with me. He can't be in Vitality. He's not good enough and they're not going to win a major. Right, pause, wipe your brain, put him in heroic. They'll surely win the major. Like, what are you doing? That doesn't make sense. None of that makes sense. Like, which player am I putting him in heroic instead of, by the way? Like, this is where you prove that thing I said earlier, Nero, that people irrationally hate either Shush or Tessus. If you say instead of Tessus, slap your own face and shut the fuck up. Have you ever watched them play? Tessus is about twice as good as that role. What are you talking about? Tessus actually has like that super crisp fucking instant headshot aim. Like, Dupree had that about 4 years ago now, boys. Like, that ship sailed. Like, he's just a fucking body sprayer now, mate. Like, just understand reality. Understand this is the new normal. That's who Dupree is now. So why people are asking for him? Like, if anything, I actually think that makes your point for you, Nero. I don't believe they really think Dupree's like an awesome signing. I think it's just the only big name they could see maybe being allowed to join heroic. So in their brain, they know that what we're seeing is kind of a bit meh. So their brain just goes like, fuck it, just throw in a name that I know and hope it shakes things up or something. Because I can't really see what they think it's actually going to apply to the team when people make that move. Like, if anything, for me, the team that he should be on a team like Maus. That's the sort of team like Dupree can play on. He can't be on heroic. Their job for real should be try and be number 1 team in the world and win the fucking major. Like, look, if they somehow can add Dupree do that, obviously I'll tip my hat, but that wouldn't be the angle I'd be going with. If anything, like I said, I'd be going the opposite way. I'd be looking for some, like, the next Danish stud and hoping essentially you do amazing scouting and get him into the squad. But I'll tell you what, that's fucking hard. As much as they've done it so far, I don't know if you can just be right 5 times in a row. It's going to be pretty hard. Like, I thought the Yabby pickup was fire, even though it hasn't thus far totally panned out. It was worth it for the first 6 months at least, wasn't it? It was banging. Right, let's move on. What is your ugly point, Maui? This is a very on point one.
Yeah, this is just...
On
yeah, I mean, it is, and it's also kind of just fallen by the wayside. Like, no, I don't see anybody even talking about this. Yeah, because everybody was so hyped up for what could have been a really cool Eastern European shuffle with all the multitude of in-game leaders that are in the space, and like, oh, okay, this team could use a captain. This team could find an upgrade here, or even they could go to other squads. And Jerry, who so many of us were hyping for such a long time as being an in-game leader that's undervalued and could probably really actually shake things up. Like, people were talking at one point, like, get Jerry on Navi or get Jerry on Cloud9. And then now the ugly point is that he's joining PARIVISION, and you look at this roster and you're literally scratching your head as to who 3 of these people are. So for reference, this roster is Jerry, Power, who we played for such a long time with on that.
But hasn't been relevant in about 3 years. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, then you have 2 guys that were on the K23 lineup, X5G7V, also known as Steam Authenticator code, and then you have Ragin, who also, like, none of these guys are prospects, by the way.
That's pretty good.
And the last name,
fair play. Give him that one. That was pretty good. Okay, keep going.
This is this guy that I have never even heard mentioned in any context whatsoever. Like Belchanok, okay? Like, I don't know who this guy is. You look at his stats or anything, and it's like up and down numbers in tier 2.5 Counter-Strike. And what is just so ugly about this is that Jerry... We know what Jerry can do when he has good pieces. We saw what he was able to accomplish with Zorte, with a couple of the other guys that he's just been working with in the past, how he's kind of, like, in some ways, lifted some guys up from relative obscurity. And I think that Jerry, in some ways, just deserves something a little bit better than what I'm seeing here. And with all of the talent that's floating around in Russia, Eastern Europe, you would think that there would be something better to put on the table than this. And even the announcement from what the real kicker here is that PARIVISION did an announcement for this thing. And usually when you get these kind of announcements, especially with a name like Jerry, you would expect like how many quote tweets would you expect that this had? And it's been around for a couple days. It's got 7 quote tweets, and the biggest name person that's quote tweeted it was Eternal J. Like, no one's even talking about this team. Like, no, this has inspired nobody to pay attention to this roster, and that just sucks because we know that Jerry is actually a really solid fragging in-game leader, and we also know that he has proven multiple times that he can at least bring a team to like playoff contention of a small tournament. He hasn't actually really done too much on the major stage. Like, he's never made it out of the challenger stage despite qualifying for a few majors, but he still at least brings these teams to the major, and we've seen that a lot of players have popped off because of being led under Jerry has helped out their career. So to see this for Jerry, it's just, once again, I almost would have rather just he stayed on 4s and then just done something with some of the pieces there, because this inspires me in no way.
I like the just random stray that Eternal J just called there for no reason.
I think he's the biggest guy. He's the biggest guy that quote tweeted.
No, fair play. It's accurate. Okay.
Yeah, it is a real shame because it's like it's just all of XPower's old teammates as well. Like, it's the K23 guys and I don't even know how to say it, like NER0 teams or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know.
NAVI, I think it was.
NAVI, yeah. Like, it's literally his old teammates, and this is a Jerry that, like, honestly, he has kind of a bit of Amister on him. It feels like, because it's like from the outside, it looks like he's got really good results. He's bringing the players up, but then these tier 1 teams are just looking at him and thinking, I'm not sure, like, because he could have been in like a Cloud9 for Hobbit, and a lot of people maybe would think that that's a better team. Like, but there's a reason that these tier 1 teams are looking at him. That like there must be something where they're looking down and thinking, I'm not really sure. And it's that thing as well. Like, BetBoom could have got him, but they've got nafany instead. Like, they've chosen nafany over him as well. Forza have got rid of him. It's like, what do we not know about Jerry? Because he's like very charming in all these interviews as well. Like, I don't understand why he's had to go back to Exapower and be like, oh, who have you played with recently? We can make a team or something. Because this is an IGL that should be getting to work with like people like Duncan and the up and comers. Like, this is like his calling. This is what he should be doing, and instead he's left with complete scraps. And Forza are like even worse as well. Like, it's just gone terribly for both of them.
Yeah, the thing I find most crazy about this, I actually addressed this on a past episode before we even knew what team he was. When it's just rumoured that he was going to form a new squad, I actually brought this point up. I think it was on this show. It might have been this one, a hot take point made. And the reason I brought it up is because we've all done this for 7 years now. Every time we talked about, like you say, NAVI or obviously the other teams, pick any other Eastern European team over Cloud9 now, Gambit. When anyone talked about an IGL, this was the go-to name everyone said, mainly as a placeholder. The point was there was no other fucking names. Like, once Zeus retired and Blade became a coach, that's it. There are no other names. Like, no one really actually vouches for Chopper like that. You all pretend you do. No one gives a flying fuck about Boomich. Spoiler, do you all watch him now when he plays in 1win? No, you didn't watch him, did you? Because who gives a shit? So no one really believed any of these players were IGLs. So what's weird is, like you say, from the outside, it seemed like the most obvious name. Like, one of the things you'll notice is weird as well. I've always said in Counter-Strike, unlike actually a lot of sports and esports in general, it's a fairly satisfying game. Like, eventually the names that should go to that team usually do. Like, obviously eventually someone like Device was probably going to go back to Astralis. Like, everyone knew that's probably on the table, and it's kind of satisfying. They're like, yeah, give it enough time, the deal will get done. Or if like it's an obvious move, someone from this country could hook up, well then eventually it happens. Like, so the idea this didn't happen, like you say, this now it's made it more mysterious. Because the weird thing is, when I looked it up, at the time when Forz was really breaking out onto the scene in like 2019, he was only actually 21 years old at the time. He was actually a very young IGL. But if you think about how many years he's put under his belt now, and think about this is why because the only angle that you could really come up with to say that he's like a shit IGL would be that he'd have to have had nothing to do with the scouting at all. Like, if someone else did all the scouting, then maybe they just put really good players around him and he just did an alright job. But if he had anything to do with the scouting, one, he has a mega eye for talent, like beyond even like Daps level. And then two, this is like 2 completely different squads of Forza as well. Remember, the original one was the one where they just force-fed Exapower and AWP all the time. And if anything, Flit was actually like probably like underserved in that team and like was like probably a much better player than you would notice if you watched them play. Then they later had that older one where it was the Shalfane Zorti one. Those were also two players who looked like banger AWPer, banger rifler. Like these are all players that all looked good under this guy. So I don't get it. You look at the results, like, yeah, he wasn't winning tournaments. Like, you're not supposed to with these players. Like, if anything, he was overperforming with his squad. They'd have upsets. They'd get to majors. Like, they would be in position to knock out real tier 1 teams. So to me, I have to agree with your sentiment, Nero. The worst thing about this is, it's not even now that he's just like trapped in Forza and he can't leave, or he doesn't want to leave and he won't go. Seemingly, he is available for whatever reason, like you say. Everyone who speaks Russian just knows something we don't, apparently. And apparently, this guy, the second he's not on like camera speaking English, apparently he must just be the most toxic guy of all time. Like, I can't imagine what he's possibly done. Because this does almost seem like he's like blackballed. Because if you notice the other thing, which is no one else ever even references him in the way we do. Like, no of the Eastern European players talk about why isn't he in it. No one else seems even like this is a mystery to them. They all seem like this is just, yeah, ho-hum, whatever. He's not in the team. Who cares? And the saddest thing is, I'll come to what you said at the end. The real bummer for me is that like you almost get the feeling people actually low-key think he's shit. Because it's not just that he doesn't get to be in Cloud9 or Navi, the big teams. Dude, he doesn't even get to be with like a Wonderful or these other like top Dexter, like the other like good talents. He doesn't even get those players in his team. He ends up with like we're saying, like a shitter version of an old Force lineup pretty much. Like, this is just underwhelming. Like, this is one of those things where I might even have to look into this and just find out like what the fucking skinny is. Cause I've never tried asking specifically the Russian players like what's going on. I always just assumed like it was that thing of like you couldn't leave Forza in the same way as if people don't know. There's a reason why I don't usually waste my time speculating about Furia players leaving. The vibe is they just can't, essentially. Like, for whatever reason, you can pick the reason, but they just can't. Like, it's just not even, they're not even thinking of it, basically. So it's just a bummer to me that apparently he can move. It is available, but just no one wants him. I don't get it myself. I don't get it, mate.
Well, he said he got offers from international teams as well. I think it was HLTV confirmed. He said it. Like, he said he got offers, and he was just like, "No, I want like more control over like the players in it." And this is before the team was announced. And you're like, okay, you back your talent ID, and then your talent ID is just Exapower's Steam friendless. It's like, okay, fine. What happened to you?
Indeed. Right, we'll come to the last one now, and this is going to be mine. And so here's my point. I'm going to say, which is I've purposely picked it for the ugly section, and it is blameF signing that massive extension with Astralis. Because one, if people don't know, it will never make sense to actually sign, this might sound counterintuitive, it will never make sense to sign a long contract in Counter-Strike. Are you ready? Unless you actually incredibly cynically believe the market will die during your contract being signed. And if so, spoiler, then your team might fold and you might never get the money anyway. So I actually genuinely think there's almost no way to justify doing a long contract there. What blameF has done, basically, is he's done a contract like he plays in a massive American sport, and now the joke is he's beaten us all. He's guaranteed himself $100 million for the next 5. He hasn't. What he's done is he's guaranteed himself what he can legally extract from Astralis for like however many more years. And the problem with that is two-part. One, I actually think, if anything, blameF's the one making the worst part of this contract. Like, I actually think he could be in a better team than Astralis. Like we talked about earlier, like, I don't see why he... By the way, if I had controlled the rosters, why wouldn't I put blameF onto Heroic and just have that production every fucking game? Like, that would be step one of how I'd try and make them a champion. So, to me, I think he's actually done himself. I know to all the fans of Astralis, they're going to think it's brilliant. Like, awesome, we've got blameF. Like, one, I don't even know that he'll be in IGL in 5 years or whatever. And then two, I actually think he's in his individual prime. So I think it's kind of a waste. And then thirdly, like I say, unfortunately, with the way esports works now, it might not even actually make that much sense financially. Like, there's a world where... Whereas for everyone else, the best thing that could happen to the scene would be like, you know, the scene like 10X's in 2 years. That would actually be the worst thing that could happen to blameF. He'd be mega fucked on his contract then. So I think people just think it's sports when they see those extensions. Like, oh, brilliant for everyone. It's like, not always. It's complicated on those ones for me. So where are you guys at on this move here? That's why I put in ugly. It's not bad or good. It just depends on how you look at it.
I think it's part of like the Astralis philosophy, though, right? Like, they kind of want to be seen as this sporting team.
Yes.
Like, they did it for Glaive and Zip too. Like, I think they just like the idea of long contracts. And the Glaive and Zip one, that was Glaive and Zip doing a runner on them. And I think this time maybe
Indeed.
the balance is more towards Astralis, just because like having basically the best Danish rifler for me anyway, like just locked down for 2 years, like that's a long time to have him locked down for. And and you are kind of like, if you're like a Danish fan, you're kind of rooting for Heroic to go bust and somehow merging the two teams. And I don't know what blameF's logic is, because I do think that like we like, it was kind of my point as well, but we're kind of heading in this international direction, and I think blameF to win majors, and I think he is good enough to win majors. Like but is he going to be able to do it on Astralis? Like, unless something crazy happens to Heroic or there's crazy new talent or something, like you're kind of worrying for that element of it. And yeah, these long contracts just, they don't make sense. It's the same reason that people, when they talk about age as well, like in esports, it just doesn't make sense the same way. Like your peak is a way shorter amount of years than people assume. Like how many players have actually peaked for longer than like 3-4 years? Like it's a very, very short amount of players. It's like the absolute greats. So a 2-year contract is like, that's like equivalent of what Chelsea are doing in football, signing people on like 9-year deals.
Yes.
Like that is the length of difference in esports as it is to sports. Like this is, I think it's probably agents playing a part as well, because it's just the guaranteed money part of it. And I think people see longer contracts as more professional just because of the sports analogies, when in fact they probably aren't actually better for the scene.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to advise blameF, I probably wouldn't have said to sign. Well, to 2025 to me it's not the, because this article came out 4 days ago and it's signing through 2025, the end of 2025, so it is 2 years long, essentially 2 years and some change, I'd say. So that's a bit long for someone like blameF when you're at such a point in your career that it actually seems like he could be contesting for a spot on a really big roster very soon that's better than Astralis. Like, this is a guy that I don't really see why. Also, if you're a team like, say, G2 or Vitality, you wouldn't want this guy also. Like, there's no reason that any team couldn't get a boost with their worst player out and blameF in. Like, obviously not role for role, that's always going to work, but like, he's actually proven that he's actually a pretty solid in-game leader. Maybe they don't want to necessarily do that for, say, a Vitality. Like, you don't want to swap him out for Apex, but if you put him in for, honestly, Flames or Magisk, he's not bad. For ENCE, he could be on any of those, but I don't think he'd actually, the pay probably wouldn't be any different for ENCE. In fact, it might even be worse. So if I'm blameF here, I get why he does it, actually. I'll give a little bit of credit to him. I'd say that if you're a Danish person and you have a chance to sign for a multi-year deal with Astralis, and to us, we know that it is a bit long in this industry, but for him, and probably in terms of the influences around him saying, oh yeah, just a 2-year contract, you know, if it's not working out that well, it's just 2 years or whatever. Because to normal people and normal people that watch at regular sports, you don't think that's that crazy. Like, a 2-year deal seems like, you know, like the minimum deal is usually a season, which is 1 year. So I'm not entirely opposed. I would have wanted this to happen, though, with like maybe one more piece for Astralis, because like you're saying, Nero, with the fact that blameF is good enough to be competing on championships, I think blameF is easily good enough that if he's your second best player on a team, you should have major aspirations or major winning aspirations, and that's the case. Device is the best player on the team right now, and if he's on for a while, if you have blameF, you pretty much just need a supporting cast that you can trust in, and I will say that's where Astralis falls really short right now. The Boar Upstairs Buzz trio, to me, is probably the worst trio in the top 10, excluding Gamer Legion, if you even want to say they're a top 10 team. So that's, you would want a little bit more behind that, and putting your faith into an organization like Astralis is pretty tricky given everything that we've heard behind the scenes about this organization as a whole. So I kind of do get it, though. It does feel like you're probably signing with a big name team like the Lakers or something like that. Even if you know the team's in turmoil, you're still at the end of the day wearing a jersey that's going to be really respected by fans. And so public perception of you can be that you're the best player on their favorite team. And for that reason, you're going to have a huge upswing in terms of just your influence.
By the way, before we end, no, go on, jump in.
Well, I was going to say, it's also that thing of like re-signing now kind of, it implies that his deal's probably going to run out soon, and that kind of adds a whole new element of like is now the time to re-sign? Like if you're like a really ruthless agent, you're saying wait until after Copenhagen, wait until opportunities to change come, because you need to be able to negotiate from a position of strength and say to Astralis, right, like if Shush and testers are available, you just have to go for them, something like that. Like you need to really play, and I don't know what has gone on, but it kind of seems like, oh, your contract's up in a few months, you want to just sign another one. That's what it kind of feels like has happened. And I just think, I don't know, like he maybe needs, he's a big enough player and a big enough asset to Astralis that he could have maybe got a little bit more out of it by waiting a little bit.
I would just say on that, I think essentially he's too nice a guy. He's just not a really cerebral thinker, is my actual opinion on this topic. Because the issue is, I've actually had this happen a few times without naming names. There's been some really good players who, similar scenario, they're like right in the peak of their career. They're going to have next couple of years, basically, should be the best contract they sign. And I've had ones where they told me, like, I'm just going to sign with the same team though, because, you know, we're going to run it back. And I'm like, oh, no, but wait till like free agency begins and then just sign with them. And they were like, no, but I want to sign with the same team though. And I go, well, yeah, but we'll still sign with them, but we're going to check what the other teams. And then they go, no, but you don't understand. If I don't sign now, they might think I don't want to sign with them. And I'm like, that's a good thing. Yes, we want that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take all the offers, compare them, wait and push your offer up, and then we'll sign with them still. And they were like, yeah, but in the end, what? I'll be on the same team. It's like, you know what? This is why get an agent in here to fucking wreck this guy. Now I see why agents are where they are, mate, because like you won't believe how many players are like that, are just utterly fucking like. What's mad is it means even when they follow football, they're not actually paying attention like what goes on with those deals. They must think like, oh, why was he holding out? Didn't he want to join? It's like, yeah, for more money. Like, it's a fucking negotiation, innit? So that's one thing that does kill me a little bit, but sadly, loads of pros will be like that. Essentially, as long as the money's like similar to what they got now and they want to be on this team right now, might even just be right now, by the way, not even in a year, just right now they want to play for them. Loads of them will just re-sign. In fact, they'll even be so dumb, like you're saying, they'll flip it the other way and think they're getting an advantage. Like, oh, but I've signed now. I didn't have to go through like an free agency. It'd be really stressful, wouldn't it? I just signed now before my deal ended. It's like, well, now you'll never know that, like, for all you know, maybe FaZe was going to offer you like twice the money or something mental, you know. Like, you can't know, but the point is you can now never know. You'll never even give them a chance to do that. And I can even say that's one of those areas where it wouldn't matter now because of how bad the current like investment scenario is. But a few years ago, especially, a lot of big names have shot themselves in the foot with those ones, by the way. Like the amount of times I actually had teams on the level of like a Team Liquid or a G2 where like they would have potentially done like an out of nowhere massive offer for someone, but the player didn't even give them the chance to and just immediately like secretly signed, like without even, remember in CS we don't even have fucking poaching laws. Like you can even just tell people, you know, like in a month my contract ends, like if you want to bid, but they don't even do that, sadly. The one thing I did want to end on is I did actually have a question before we end. It's kind of like at the beginning when I asked you about this NER0, which is, what do you actually think about blameF then? This is obviously a play you've done some dives into on some of the tech stuff. Because one thing, like you referenced yourself, was obviously if I told everyone, oh, you know, blameF, and they were like, yeah, that big beta. I was like, yeah, that big beta, just like Case Serrato and Frozen. They'd all go, yeah, excuse, like that James Franco gif, like, yeah, what, excuse me? Like they'd all go fucking mental, mate, if you dared say those two names. So here's the question: is blameF a beta? One, two. Actually, what do you think of him as a player? Like, does he play it too much? Does the style work for him? What's your take on that topic? Because as I referenced, the two names we just mentioned there, some people think are the absolute best players in the world at the rifle, right? So, how does he get into this category?
I mean, I think he has to lose a little bit just from the baiting, but that's like the exact profile you kind of want from a star rifler. Like all these star riflers love to eco frag for their confidence and things like that. It's not just for stats. Like blameF isn't doing this for PR reasons. Like he knows everyone thinks he's a beta and he still does the eco fragging. Like it's I think he's actually underrated by most of the community just because of the sheer output he has is ridiculous. Like the amount of kills and damage this guy puts out, and even when you do look at like the forbidden Leofy rating, like he checks out on that as well because he is always like, okay, so he's not like a huge risk taker very often, but what he is doing is improving his team's chance of winning like pretty much every single round because he's not someone who makes loads of mistakes, and I know that's a playstyle thing, but there are times like recently this Astralis team I've seen a lot of times where he has kind of taken the bull by the horns. Like I think it was an ancient game nearly overtime, and then he just got two or three picks in a row, like from 12-15 down or something, got them to overtime, and then I think it was a Cologne one. It was a Cologne ancient game, and he is willing to do that now. Like he is willing to kind of be the star rifler, but yeah, he's obviously going to be naturally more cautious than a lot of other star riflers. But we don't come at Rops for being a bit of a patient lurker. Like we don't come at other players for the way they get their numbers as much as we go for blameF. And I know it's because you're watching it and everyone knows you're eco-fragger in your matchmaking game and you get annoyed at them. But like this is the professional Counter-Strike scene, and this is his profile of being one of the best trade fraggers that I've ever seen in CS. Like he does not miss a trade frag, and that's such an important skill to be that good at that I think he is actually quite underrated. as a player, and I will. All of my friends hate him. Everyone I speak to hates him, but I will just defend him to the hilt because just if you're getting 25 kills a game, you're a good player, and I don't care.
Here's the thing, I sort of know what they don't like. It's like the VP thing. I know why they don't like his style.
Yeah.
The reason I find that crazy, though, Nero, is like, have you ever looked with your fucking eyes? The guy's skills are really cracked out, though. Like, he's really fucking good at shooting people in the game. Like you say, like, I've always said this. It's only baiting if you... To me, baiting's derogatory. Like, it's not actually baiting if you trade. Like, that's a fundamental part of the game. Like, that's actually good. It's why no one ever did... Even though now people might meme they did. No one ever actually called Cold Zero a beta. What he did was just correctly trade and then win the fucking round. Like, everyone just called him, you know what? The best. Like, that's how you're supposed to play it at one point in time. Just wondering what you thought. Do you have any final thoughts on blameF, Maui?
I think that Semphis had a really, really great line, though, about the eco-frag stuff, is that with how good people are nowadays, especially with pistols, it's just that, if you can get a guy that's always going to get the eco-frags, maybe go 3-for-1 on that, like 3-for-1 KD against pistols, even when he has a rifle, that's good, because so many people are so good at deagling nowadays, or even using a Tech 9 or P250 to find that one cheeky kill, that if blameF feels pretty impervious on those kinds of rounds, and sure, he farms them, but it's also that he's not dying, so that's good. That's good for your team. That's good for your economy. I'd rather have blameF fighting five pistols than Borup fighting 5 pistols. I've seen Borup mess that shit up. I've seen him throw a molly at their feet and then they run through it and he doesn't get a single kill. So put blameF in the front, let him get the eco frags so that Borup doesn't fuck it up.